Welcome everyone to the Unboxing Careers podcast, where we shed light on what different careers are really like so that you can choose a career you'll really love. Today we're diving into the career of a social media marketing. But before we do, let's talk briefly about unboxing thoughtful gifts. At thoughtfulcollection.com, you can shop from a wide selection of curated products you can feel good about, helping you express friendship, gratitude, and love. The next time you need to, don't just gift thoughtfully at thoughtfulcollection.com. Alright, I'd like to welcome to the show Hannah Balliet. I've been out of this for like a week and a half now. I've been taking a little break, and now I'm right back into it, and it's terrible. So bear with me here. So Hannah Balliet, social media marketer, director of communication and teaching at Ugly Mug Marketing. So we're going to talk about that title in a little bit here as well. So Hannah, thanks for joining the podcast. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
This is going to be fun. So second social media person we've had on. We've gone the influencer route before, and now we're talking about the marketing route, which is always fun for me. So let's start with this. If we talk about social media marketing, I think the audience probably knows they're younger. This is just part of their life. But what is typically, if you're doing this as a profession, what is typically a social media marketer? What do they do?
Yeah. Gosh, that's such a loaded question. There's so many different social media platforms these days, areas of expertise, whether you are actually going and creating kind of like the user-generated content style video work, or you're editing reels, or you're simply the scheduler of the posts. There's a variety of different hats, I like to say, that social media marketers wear, and it might fit into some of those buckets. So truly that content creation phase of actually filming the video or going to our clients and taking the photos or coordinating with a photographer and identifying a shot list and kind of putting together what that mock ideal Instagram reel feed might look like, or just our ideal feed overall, or might even be leaning more into the branding side of things in that case as well, where we're trying to really define the company's brand and what they really want their footprint to be on social media, helping them identify what places and spaces they need to be spending their time on. Spoiler alert, we do not need to be on every single platform for, small businesses or people that are listening to this. And I think that's a big myth around that, but this is about careers. So you might spend some time leaning into that more strategy and brand building side, but then you also might be scheduling content. You might be going into tools like Hootsuite or Buffer and making sure that you're getting your message out across various platforms like LinkedIn or any of the Meta tools or on TikTok, whatever it may be. So your day can have a lot of variety in it. So you kind of have to decide, do I want to have my creation hat on, or do I want to have my more behind the scenes, actually scheduling, doing maybe a little bit of those more mundane tasks? That there could be variety in that capacity.
Excellent. So I'm going to jump around here, which is MO for me, 100%. So I'm going to talk about what a typical day or week looks like here in a couple of minutes, but going into this, right? So this is something where 20 years ago when I was in college, more than 20 years ago when I was in college, you could study marketing. Social media marketing wasn't a thing. It wasn't a concentration, a class in school. We have these things now at some universities. What is a typical career path looking like now if you want to become a social media marketer for, startup brand, large organization? Is it like you just go through your normal marketing degree and then have a couple classes? Is this a path that you go into specifically, or is it more of a stepping stone? Like, hey, I'm going to be a social media marketing director for a couple of years, and then you navigate up. Is this a permanent stop for someone?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I think about being in college, even 12, 15 years ago, and
oh, you're so young.
The same thing was true. Yeah. But I really feel the same way. There wasn't a social media specific class. There wasn't a digital marketing concentration at the time. They have since advanced and have those things now. I remember working on a group project in a class, and they were really challenging us to think more about social media. And I'll never forget Professor O'Toole at Aquinas College. He's still there. Shout out to Professor O'Toole. He was talking to us about how important that component was in our strategies that we were building, because it was at the time. He was like, this is going to be the future. This is going to be such a massive component as someone's marketing mix, so to speak. This is going to be one of the tools that they really focus on. It's not going to be the billboards and, the television and the radio ads. It's going to be all about social media. And so I want you guys to really heavily think on, what it would mean to put together a campaign, for X, Y, and Z local business, and how they can utilize social media to their benefit. So with that thought in mind, I do think that it has changed. I know that it has changed tremendously where there are classes around this. For example, I didn't learn how to use Facebook Ads Manager and Meta Business Suite when I was in college. I learned how to do those things on the spot in my job training. And the owner of our agency, we were much smaller at the time when I first joined on, and he is the one who taught me how to utilize that tool. And that's a skill that has done me really well. And I'm so grateful to have learned that skill on the job. But I believe that that is something, and know that that is something that they are teaching now in school. Now, as far as jumping out of college and diving, headfirst into the social media world, is this a permanent stop? I really think you can have, if we're not just focusing on social in particular and just thinking more holistically from a digital perspective, that might include Hulu streaming ads, that may also include PPC campaigns or some aspect of SEO. I think when we broaden that scope, this is certainly a career. When I first got into this, I really was working. Initially, my first job out of college, I was working in the nonprofit space, and I was helping them kind of elevate into this social media. They were like, you're young, like, how to use Facebook, like, help us put together like these Facebook components, right? And then later we got interns who kind of really helped us elevate that. And they taught us about things like Canva, which also wasn't around, when we're talking about, 10 years ago or so. That was something that was very new to the game, right? And so I really believe that a willingness to learn in this space can help you have a longevity, or significantly increase the longevity of your career in this place, but there might be some different stepping stones. So for me, I was working in nonprofit and was kind of helping with marketing on the side, but then that first marketing role was really stepping into being a social media manager. So I stepped into an agency that just had a handful of clients at the time. And during that time frame, I was trying to learn the skill of the ads component and actually running ads and managing a budget, right? But I got really good at that part, right? That's the easy part. The hard part can sometimes be the strategizing and the problem solving component that goes along with that. We can't just hit the boost post button or run an ad. We have to be able to problem solve and think about the problems that our clients are facing from a very strategic vantage point, right? And so that became something that really evolved to then going to becoming the department manager, where I was handling some aspects of sales, leading a team, still being client facing, to now being the director of communications and teaching, which really leans into one of my maybe more soft skills, which would be the teaching component. Something that I'm really passionate about is teaching other business owners how to implement these things, because the reality is we actually don't need to have all of those social media classes in college to be able to catapult us into a career or to be able to successfully navigate this for our small business.
So 2 questions on this. You mentioned the ad manager part, kind of learn on the job. There's a lot of information out there now. These, companies will use Facebook as an example, but like they have training online where you can kind of learn these things. Google has the same thing. If you're hiring someone net new today, first job out of college, is there some sort of expectation that they have fundamental knowledge of this? Do they have to have an advanced knowledge? Do they have to have no knowledge? What do you guys typically look for just on your side personally?
Yeah, we approach hiring very differently. We really believe that we can teach someone who has that willingness to learn. We are certainly looking for someone who is an A player, someone who is very intrinsically motivated, who wants to do a good job in their role. But knowing how to navigate ads manager is not a requirement. I can teach you how to do that. Something that is a little bit more difficult to teach someone might be work ethic, or might be that strategic or problem solving approach, right? That mindset of how you approach a problem. Those are things that are a little bit more challenging. So I am always looking for someone who really has an eagerness and a willingness to learn. Of course, if they have some of that background and some of those skills already coming into it, or they've played around in Canva before, making a baby shower invitation for a friend, right? I'm going to, of course, look at that and say, hey, that's great. You're curious about those things, but they certainly don't have to be an expert. I think another thing I oftentimes look for too is the soft skills and the ability to converse and to articulate your thoughts as well, because we need to be able to do that as a team when we are strategizing behind the scenes. But a lot of this role is also going to be communicating directly with your clients and with your customers, right? Because you're ultimately taking over the reins of their social media outlets, and you are becoming, in some ways, the face of the brand behind the scenes, but you're controlling the messaging, right? And so we want to have good rapport and a good relationship with that person as well. So those are some of the key things that I'm looking for: that willingness to learn, that A player mentality, that internal drive to do a good job, and then also for those soft relational skills as well.
So great answer. So thank you for that. Yeah. I was not planning on going down this road, but I'm going to keep pegging on this a little bit here if we can. So yeah. Let's say you're hiring someone, you said you're looking for the 8 players, right? And we've already talked about, you have a career progression, right? We're going to get into school here in a second, but marketing degree, and then you get a job, you work your way up, typical career progression there. If someone comes in and says, hey, I'm really interested in this job, but I don't want to do social my whole life, right? They're interested in that same career progression, maybe a couple of years, learn, and then you advance if you're good enough and there's a fit there. If someone says that to you and says, hey, I love it, happy doing this, but I want more, this is just a step. This is always a delicate balance between trying to get the job and trying to be honest in that and just be representing of who you are. How do you look at someone who might say that to you? Is it, should you focus, like that new person coming in, should they focus on be like, hey, just focus on this job and let the chips fall where they may there? Or should they be honest with you about those things?
Yeah, I love that question, because I think that's been true of my experience without me necessarily directly saying that at Ugly Mug. So one thing that we're really big on is trying to create more space for the things that our employees actually really enjoy doing and are really good at. We want those two things to be in alignment, because when people are doing more of the work that they actually love, they're going to probably stay longer. They're going to be happier in their jobs. There's an abundance amount of research around why that is a good thing for a company, but also for an individual too, right? And so I would say, if someone came to me and said, hey, I'm really excited about this, maybe I even have past experience, like you said, but this isn't my forever deal, I would kind of push back on that. And I would say, well, what is it that you want to accomplish? Let's not talk about this job then right now. What is the next thing that you're really hoping to lean into? Or what are some of the components about the social media role in particular that you find interesting or that you enjoy doing? Or more importantly, what are the aspects of this that you don't enjoy doing, right? And then, because what happens, and what's happened for us at Ugly Mug Marketing, is that then we try to create space for that person. And I'll use one of my coworkers. She was probably the third person I hired at Ugly Mug, Abby. One thing that she has learned about herself in this role is that she actually doesn't like being client facing. She loves her clients. Don't get her wrong, but she would rather be behind the scenes. And more importantly, she wants to be creating. Abby is wildly creative. She has a great eye for graphic design. And more specifically than that, Abby is wildly talented at Pinterest and creating really engaging content that has had a lot of success and actually been able to provide revenue dollars for our clients as well, so that they can see that positive return on investment. But I know that because I've really leaned into that with Abby. And we as a team have said, okay, she actually does not like being in these client meetings, but like, how can we give her more Pinterest people? How can we give her more opportunity to work on the things that she actually loves to do? So that would be, and Abby is happy in her role, right? Like, and I know that Abby's happy in her role, and we're trying to keep leaning more into those things so that maybe Abby's role is not digital marketing specialist or whatever it may be now. Maybe Abby's role is like lead creation officer or something someday at Ugly Mug Marketing, right? Because we're leaning more into those things that Abby actually really enjoys. So if someone came to me, if I felt like I could get a good answer from them on like, well, these are the areas that I really like, or this is what I want to lean more into. If I thought that there could be space, or if I felt like that was a part of our vision as a company or as an organization to lean more in that way, and we could really use that, and I could create space for that person later on down the road, I would absolutely not disqualify them from hiring them. Everyone has different hiring practices, but that's really been my philosophy. If you're a good A player and you can do this job and you're going to do it well, right? But we can get you to kind of lean into some of those other things so that you can help us grow, and I can hire the next social media coordinator. I think that's great because I want to retain you ultimately as, someone who's hiring. I want to have good, happy, long-standing employees, which I know is sometimes not always the trend these days of, hopping on to different careers or staying or going places for more money. But, ultimately I want to create and be a part of helping create an environment and work culture that does value those things and allows people to really lean into those areas that they like and that they're good at.
That's a great answer, Hannah. Thank you. And we're full of shout outs today too. You got the professor shout out. We got Abby over there. Good job, Abby. So we're rolling. Everything comes in threes. We need one more before this thing wraps up here. All right. So let's shift here. Hannah, you hire me. I'm coming there. Not my first day, right? Because you got all the onboarding stuff. But I start running as a social media manager. Walk us through kind of like what a typical week might look like for you. And don't skip over the mundane, boring stuff, right? Because every job has them.
Yeah.
What does a typical week look like for someone who's doing that?
Yeah. So we are in an agency setting. So we have a few different buckets. We have web people, we have SEO, PPC, social folks, and then some traditional marketing aspects as well. So our Monday afternoon, we are diving into a team meeting. We are getting up to date on company numbers, department numbers. We are out loud saying what our commitments are, what our goals are. We're huge on results at Ugly Mug for our clients, but also for ourselves. And so we have a lot of transparency when it comes to revenue dollars, sales, all of that. So we're going to dive into preparing for that meeting in the morning, maybe answering some client emails that may have funneled in later on Friday or over the weekend. And then heading into Tuesday, we're going to jump into one-on-ones. So you're going to meet with if you're a social media manager on our team or, a digital marketing specialist, you're going to meet with the head of your department. You're going to go through any questions that you might have, any areas that you might be feeling uneasy on. One of the questions I loved to ask when I was the department manager to people in this role was, who's the next person that you think is going to leave? Because the reality is our clients aren't going to stay forever. And it kind of forces you to really think through, who are those clients that you're like, ooh, they might leave. How can I make their experience better? Or why is it that they're frustrated? It kind of forces you to actually think about that instead of like tucking that away for another day, right? And so you're going to go into those meetings, and we like to start our weeks off with those meetings so that you have the rest of the week to really lean into the work and not really be distracted too much. So coming off that on Tuesday afternoon, you're probably going to, depending on the time of the month, let's say it's like right now, we're about mid-month, you're probably going to start preparing all of the content for the following month, or you might be in the midst of getting all of the Q4 content in order, because we've got the holidays coming up right now at the time that we're recording this. And so we need to make sure we are being proactive with getting everything scheduled around Thanksgiving and around Christmas, especially for our friends that are in e-commerce, making sure everything is in order. So that might include really just writing copy right now and or creating the graphics or a combination of both. All of us work very differently. Sometimes we like to segment those and do them one before the other, one at a time. Some of us do it all at the same time, but you might dive into that Tuesday and Wednesday. And then on Thursday and Friday, that might be a little bit more of a client meeting focused time. So you're going to be meeting with your clients, checking in, and that check-in process is going to look like, hey, here's what I'm working on this week. Here's what you can expect from me next week. And then here are any things that I need from you as well. But it's also going to include a report of sorts. So here is the report from the last 30 days, where we've been at in terms of performance with our ads, or for many of our clients, we are connected into their CRM. So I'm reporting back on metrics that actually matter to them, not just how many impressions our video got or how many views it got, right? Many business owners, small, medium, and large multi-million, billion-dollar corporations, they still want to be able to draw the line between ad revenue and dollars coming into their business. And so that meeting is really meant for that, to be able to report and provide that skyscraper 10,000 feet up, whatever, look at everything that is being done for them. And then to, again, just kind of lean into that relationship side of things, touch base, check in. And then Friday, you're going to be sending out your weekly reports of just, hey, here's what happened this week. Here's what's going on next week. And then you're kind of wrapping up for the week. And you might end your Friday afternoon with scheduling content, actually going in and doing that. I try to save that for like a Friday afternoon when you're like, just need something mundane to do. Yeah. You're like, I'm not in the copywriting creative mindset. I'm in like, it's Friday afternoon. I'm kind of checking out mindset. So that's when I typically save my scheduling and any kind of mundane tasks like that, those weekly updates for clients. That's when that's typically going to happen.
Awesome. So I want to dig into that a little bit more as well. So you guys are obviously an agency. It's going to differ a little bit in-house if you're working for a company, but not always, right? So some crossover there. But for your social media people, we'll just assume all agencies in the US are exactly like yours, right? So like when they are planning, you said you're planning out the next month's content, right? So is the person coming up with themes? Are they coming up with the copywriting, the image creation, or maybe it's just a concept around the image? Is the client saying, hey, here are the 4 themes we want to do next month, figure it out from there? Like, what is the actual involvement of that person in kind of like the making of the bread, if you will?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. So many of our clients, they are leaning on us for the expertise and the direction. Some of them might have a little bit more input than others, but ultimately we take whatever input they give us and we actually fully develop. The person in this role is fully developing everything. They are responsible for writing the copy. They are responsible for creating the graphic or the image, or they might work with our graphic design team and some components, but we really reserve those folks more for branding guidelines and for logo creation. It's expected that the social media manager is well-versed in Canva. They might also be well-versed in some Adobe Suite things, but we do not feel that that is required. So they will go from full idea to through the whole ideation process to the creation of it and actually get to present that to the client. So in that meeting I mentioned that might take place on a Thursday, during that meeting, they'll actually come with that strategy and they'll say, hey, here's all the posts, or it might be that they've already reviewed the posts and been like, yep, things look good, or they've provided feedback electronically, but we might walk through our ad strategy. So that's going to be a little bit different than our organic content. So that might be a time where we say, hey, we put together this particular offer that we want you to run. Here's the copy. Here's why we wrote the copy this way, with the calls to action, with the reasons why someone needs this and the benefits that it has. For example, to a homeowner, we work with a lot of HVAC and home service companies. So we really have it down to a T, I would say, on how we need to craft the messaging around that. But then here's the graphic and here's why we designed it this way. Because it's really easy for you to get feedback that is an opinion versus feedback that is true, sound advice, meaning that it is someone who has run HVAC ads in the past or run, ads for this particular brand, and they know what works and they know what doesn't work, and they've crafted messaging like this, right? And so that can be a challenge in this type of role, is going back and forth and trying to really assert yourself as the expert and someone that they should lean on and defer to in these moments when we're making these kinds of decisions, rather than us just saying, being a yes man in some way, of doing whatever they want. And so I think that part of the role, I'm really glad you asked that, that true ownership of the strategy from, yes, they've given me some concepts or some themes, or I've put those together, to, yes, here's what the ad is going to look like when I hit publish on Facebook or on Meta or on TikTok. But also the back end of really knowing why that works and being able to, I don't want to say justify your work, because it's not that you're going to be going head to head with your clients, but you need to be able to stand your ground and to explain why what you've created is the best solution at this time, or maybe how you're going to split test and see, if another graphic or another version of copy might work too.
So it's a really good answer. If anyone who's ever done consulting before, if you're listening to this and you think you want to go into consulting at some point, you will get a client at one time says, I don't like it. And that's it.
Yeah.
And you got to figure out what that means. So I appreciate you giving that kind of example there, because it's happened to all of us.
Yeah.
Okay. So you touched on something in that answer that I want to get into a little bit. And this could be a really short answer, but I'm kind of going to take it from a three-prong approach, and this is essential skills for someone. So you mentioned, we'll go with technology skills. So you mentioned Canva, possibly Adobe Suite products, but very briefly, just walk us through like the typical things that a social media manager the presumption would be, you should familiarize yourself with this. Second part to this is it's client-facing role. You're going to have different skill sets you're going to need there. Comes with its own set of fun and its own set of challenges at the same time. So if you could go through a couple of skills on the client-facing side, and then from the third prong, kind of the internal stuff. So part of the job is creativity. So maybe essential skills as far as creativity goes, or organization. So I know it's a lot to ask you to remember and approach those. But can you give just maybe a minute or so on each of those sets of essential skills?
Yeah, definitely. So as far as actual social media specific skills or tools that you might need to be familiar with. So yes, Canva, yes, Adobe, in some way, shape, or form. When I stepped into this role, I had a little bit of both, but I will tell you that I have advanced tremendously over the last 7 or 8 years in both of those regards. So I would say familiarity with both of those. Also, some sort of project management tool as well. We use Basecamp at Ugly Mug Marketing, but a lot of companies use Asana or some version of that. That can kind of help tie into later when we talk about organizational skills, but that is another great thing to familiarize yourself with. I would say too, being familiar with at least one of these platforms, back-end business manager ads manager tools. LinkedIn's like campaign creator versus ads manager for Meta versus whatever TikTok calls theirs. I can't think of it right now. They all pretty much look the same, right? They all have similar objectives. They have very similar targeting capabilities too. So I would say if you know how to use one, or you've seen the backside of at least one of them, you've probably seen all of them and know enough to be dangerous. So I would say if you wanted to really hone in on one of them, to dive into on your own, amazing. But you do not have to. Just familiarize yourself really with any of those tools. Many companies too, within each of those, have different SOPs on how they like campaigns to be set up too. So I think that you'll learn a lot on the job in an entry level role as it pertains to each of those platforms too. So
awesome.
Be more so on like the skills and tools side of things. Now for being client facing, Gosh, there's a lot of different directions I feel like I could go with this. I think again, I've said soft skills, like, yeah, but it really is like being able to be really personable with people when you're client facing while also maintaining that professional demeanor. There's certainly a line there. We want our clients to like us. We want to be able to connect with them personally initially. But that also comes with deeply understanding their business, deeply understanding their goals, being genuinely interested in them. I would try so hard as the head of the social media department to make sure that I was matching new clients up with coordinators and social media managers that were really interested in those particular areas. So Abby, for example, when she was really leaning into Pinterest, was working with a Southern boutique in Baton Rouge. And that was so Abby, right? Like I knew her and this client were going to hit this off. I knew Abby was going to enjoy this work. So, I think the more you can get in front of the right people too, or like communicate with your manager, even like, hey, I want to work with these type of clients. If you're in the agency setting and kind of figure out, if there's a niche that you want to focus on within e-com or, brick and mortar businesses or home service, whatever it may be. So that's just going to help you be able to build those relationships quicker. And I think the way that you show up to those meetings too, and the way that you present yourself is also something that is not often taught in school. It is often just learned through experience at times. And so the way that we show up, the level of preparedness that we have, the way that we speak, the way that we look to some extent too, those things do really matter when we're client facing. So I would say focusing in on those areas of just personability, relationship building, but also being mindful of the professional side of things, kind of stepping into that, like learning that business acumen a little bit, depending on what types of businesses you're working with, but also knowing how to show up professionally for a meeting as well. So go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say,
you probably need a break here. You probably need a break.
I'm like, what was the last one?
So you touched on a little bit. We talked about technology, right? We talked about Canva, that stuff. You mentioned part of that technology was Asana or Basecamp, which are kind of organizational tools. So that's kind of your internal tools as well.
Yeah.
And then we talked obviously about client facing stuff. So I think you hit them all. But if there's something that maybe you're thinking that like, oh, you got to be good at Excel or something like that, throw it out there. But you weave them all in.
Yeah. I feel like those would be the big ones.
So as far as the job goes, there's a lot of different things you deal with here. You get the internal, you've got the creative side, you've got the client facing side. They all are very unique, but at the end of the day, they paint a nice picture together. Looking back at your time in this role, what did you like the most about it?
I think two things. I think it's been so cool to see the evolution of a client and their business and knowing that you directly had a hand in them getting to where they are at that point. Especially if it is a client that hasn't ever really invested into social media or has been skeptical about, some marketing strategies, or they've never done anything in marketing and you were kind of like their first, dip into the water, so to speak. I think that you don't see it in the first 3 months, right? That's something after someone's been with you for maybe 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 months, you really start to see that fruitfulness, right? But I think that component is really cool. Being able to connect the dot from really beautiful, lovely advertisement with a clear call to action and the copy written just so, all the way to, oh my gosh, that just generated like $12,000 in revenue on Pinterest this month alone that you didn't have before, right? I think that is really cool. And I just feel like when I first got started in social media, I thought it was all about the pretty picture. and having the nicest Instagram feed. But the reality is that those things might be important if done the right way. But what's really important is being able to draw that line, being able to prove that your work does help progress the brand, whether it's just from general awareness perspective or rather from awareness or actually bringing in revenue for the business. So I think that part has been really cool, especially for our clients who come to us and they're like, I've got no idea. I'm hanging on to you for dear life right now. Like, what do I need to do first? What do we need to address? Like, that's really cool. But then I think the other part of it too is really tied into that as well, but the relationship component of things and being able to have someone share their business with you as an open book and sharing with you the things that keep them up at night. Entrepreneurship is a very lonely place, which is something that I don't think I knew before I started working at Ugly Mug Marketing, because we work primarily with entrepreneurs, small business owners. And so really learning the struggles and that they're having and trying to help them in more ways than, hey, I'm just scheduling the content on your Facebook page, or hey, you don't pay me to do that part. I'm just here to meet with you once a month and make sure your ads are running. I think really having that personal relationship with them and getting to know them and deeply caring about them and their business has been probably like the all-time best thing part of this career.
Excellent. And on the flip side of that, what did you like least about it? And this could be, I'll kind of set you up here. This can be like a mundane task, right?
Yeah.
So 2 hours format in Excel for a report or something, right? That can be part of the least, but I'm going to throw it out there as well.
Yeah. So backstory on this, recently at our quarterly team meeting at Ugly Mug Marketing, we did this, it's called the Working Genius. It's like a personality assessment, but the acronym for it is WIDGET. And so W is wonder, I is like innovation, D is decision maker, just something, discerning. But anyway, like we were kind of figuring out what, of the widget, what letters are we? And in my assessment, I was like, oh, that makes sense, because that's why I don't like doing that part of it. So for mine, for example, mine was innovation and discernment. So I really love the brainstorming process and thinking through what your new logo could be and your brand, and helping put together your brand guideline, and helping you craft through your mission statement and writing your slogan and thinking through what your campaigns could be. But then actually going into Ads Manager and like setting up the campaign once it's like all the fun creativity part is set up, I'm like, that's not my favorite part. I've learned about myself. I'm like, I can do it. I will do it. I have done it. I'm still doing it, but it is not my favorite part of the role. So I think one thing to note about this type of position, some agencies function a little bit differently, where they have multiple people and you're more of an account manager kind of facing person. But I think one thing to be mindful of, if an agency is set up like ours, in that you're going to be wearing lots of different hats, creative side and reporting and more analytical side, is to be mindful of that. Do you actually enjoy being more analytical or doing some of those mundane tasks, doing the scheduling, pulling the reports, allocating the budget, giving advice on how the budget should be allocated at times. Those things, for some people, that might scare them away from a role like ours, where you are one person wearing kind of all of those different hats. Of course, you have a team to support you, but you are expected to kind of lean into all of those areas with your clients. And so, yeah, I would say all that to say, my least favorite is just like the actually going in and scheduling the posts, or actually going into Ads Manager and like creating the campaign itself, like within the tool and hitting publish. I'm just like, if there was someone else on the team who could handle that component, like that would be awesome.
It is somewhat mind-numbing doing that for a long period of time. So that's what the interns are for, right? That's what the interns are for.
Exactly.
So I will say this as well. If you work at any job in marketing, right, it doesn't have to be social media, you should probably expect to wear multiple hats.
Yeah.
It's just kind of the nature of the business here. Hannah, you probably gave all the answers on this one. I'm going to ask it just in case there's something maybe we skipped over, neglected on there. But if someone is in high school listening to this and you would need to give them advice for going into this about something they should do now to prepare, you already mentioned Canva, right? That's free. You could jump on, you could learn that. They probably know how to do that anyways. But
yeah,
you talked about things they can familiarize themselves with. Is there anything else that maybe someone in high school class could be anything that you look at back, go, you know what, you should probably do this. That would be super helpful for you.
Oh, yes. Job shadowing. I feel like not enough people are job shadowing. And I think that's really crucial in the high school phase, because once you're in college, depending on the college you choose to go to or the program that you're in, you might have your first year where it's your general eds. I went to a liberal arts college. So really my first almost year and a half, almost 2 years were really those primary, trying to give me that holistic view. I was taking world history and, I wasn't quite into full marketing and business classes yet. But I think that when I went into college, I thought I wanted to be a teacher. I solely thought I wanted to be a teacher. Now, had I spent more time job shadowing and learning the ins and outs, now, granted, my mother is a teacher, but learning more of the ins and outs, I thought I wanted to be a principal ultimately, but you have to be a teacher first in order to really become a principal. So, that's what I thought I wanted to do, but I didn't really spend enough time learning what that meant. Like, what was actually required of that role, and asking people questions like, what don't you like about this job? Maybe that's something I'm not going to like about this job. I think that there's so much opportunity for connection these days too, with LinkedIn or just networking at your church or asking your parents what their friends do for work too, or asking your aunt or uncle. There's so much value in just simply asking those questions. So I would say asking the questions first of, what do you do? What do you like about it? How did you get started? Just having that curiosity from that young age, from that junior and senior in high school. And then, maybe a step further is that job shadowing component, so that when you get to college, maybe you do have a little bit more of an idea. Maybe you don't go and get that 4-year degree that actually is not what you wanted to do, but it's what you had to decide that you were doing when you were 18 years old and you had never had any experience of going into an office with someone or even knew anybody who had that profession, right? Like, gosh, yeah, there's so many jobs too these days that I feel like there's the trades too, but I'm like, there's things that don't require a traditional 4-year degree. It requires a work ethic and a player mentality. That's always, my personal mindset. I know that, the job world doesn't always necessarily agree with that, but I think if we can approach, even from a high school age, that curiosity and those questions and maybe really lean into that with some job shadowing, that can be a really great place to start before you ever even enter into a full-time college program.
Really common advice on this podcast is to do that, and it never would have occurred to me in high school back then. Kids aren't generally thinking about these things, right? So they're going out and hanging out with friends and kind of figuring out who they are to some degree. But this is what everyone says, and everyone could just say no. So I think the advice is spot on. I do know a podcast that dabbles into this topic a little bit as well, about trying to figure out what careers are like. So you didn't mention the podcast. Yeah. So Hannah, shout outs. I need 3. You mentioned your mom's a teacher. What's your mom's name?
Yeah, Carmen. Shout out to Carmen.
Third shout out.
To my mom.
All right, we hit them.
teaching at Holland Public Schools in Michigan for a really long time now. And she's great at her job, and she's doing exactly what she's supposed to be doing. So yeah, shout out to my mom.
So I want to spend just a minute before we wind down here on your career path. You mentioned you went to school, you wanted to be a teacher. When did you decide you didn't want to be a teacher? And then when did you decide you wanted to do marketing as a career?
Yeah. So thought I wanted to be a teacher all along. My mom was a teacher. I taught Sunday school. I was like, this is for me. I love kids. I was just like, yeah, this is what I want to do. Like easy peasy. I went to, I enrolled in college, and you're 18 years old and you're writing down on that paper, what your major is going to be. And I put education, I put education. I was like, great, this is what I'm going to do. And during our first couple of days on campus at Aquinas, shout out to Aquinas College in Grand Rapids, Michigan, we had this time where the department heads from every department held like info sessions. And then a senior, that was going through the program right now, talked a little bit about their experience and their classes and their favorite classes, all of that. And you could just go in as a freshman and you could just pop in and listen to the session. And I went to the education one and I was like, something, I don't know. Like, I didn't leave there like other other students, and was like, oh my gosh, yeah, that like fired me up and made me really excited about education. But then I remember shortly after that, I just hopped into the business one. I was like, like we're here, it's like, we've got a 2-hour block. I'll go to this other session for business. And that just really ignited a curiosity in me that I did not feel that I had. And I was like, well, it seems like I could be teaching in a business setting. It seems that this like thing that I really like about educating other people and having that meaningful and personal connection isn't really about teaching the Common Core. It's really about having impact with people. And I realized that I could have that impact in other ways. And so I was like, I'll just take, the intro to business class or, whatever as one of my electives, and I'll just see if I like it. And that ultimately led me down doing a business comm dual major with a concentration in marketing and a minor in Spanish. And then during that time, yeah, I was like, add it all on, like, just let's go. How much can we fit in 4 years? Because I'm not spending another penny here, but how much can we fit in 4 years? But then ultimately, like during that time period too, one of the coolest things that happened to me was I got selected to participate in this creative marketing challenge with this local nonprofit that I would then go on to become an intern for. And then I would then go on to that would be my first job out of college. But they were like, we want top marketing students from all of our, neighboring colleges to come in and compete on these teams because we're trying to define this new brand, this new grassroots fundraising program that we want to develop for cancer and Parkinson's research. And just number one, being selected for that felt cool. But actually going through that process and being partnered with people that were much smarter than me, much further along in their college career at that point, just really like solidified that I was actually supposed to keep down this path. I think that was my sophomore year of college. I got to do that. So the timing was everything of going into that junior year and having to like really lean into business classes or really leaning into education classes. I was able to like really make my decision from there. And I just think the evolution of that and having my professors really being able to speak into that too, experience and, to give me advice and direction, it felt like everything lined up. And I can't express how important it is to have the aunt, the uncle, your parents' friend, that person you job shadowed, 3 years ago when you were a junior, senior in high school, like how important it is to stay connected with those folks, because those are ultimately the people that help you find out about those kind of opportunities, or that help you figure out about the internship and land the internship. Like that networking component early on in high school will benefit you in college, but will really benefit you once you have that cap and gown on and you have your degree and you need a job now. Like that, those things are all so interconnected in the journey.
Excellent. Great story. Great advice. I also went to college initially to be a teacher. So we're right there.
Love that.
I got out pretty quick. Hannah, everything you said today was completely awesome. So thank you for that. What did I neglect to ask you that maybe is super important for the audience to know?
Ooh.
If anything.
Yeah. I would say in today's society, I feel like it is very common for people to hop different jobs and to want to climb for a different title or to climb for more money. And I can certainly appreciate both of those things, right? But I think it is really important to do your research when it comes to the company and their core values, and not just who they say they are, but who their employees say that they are. Because it might not be always a great fit. You might be a great fit for them in that you have a skill, or you have the drive, or you have the personality to thrive in their landscape and in their environment that they currently have for their company. But are they a good fit for you? Do they offer the flexibility? You know, are there opportunities to lean into those other areas that you might be interested in? You know, is there good leadership there that can provide mentorship? You know, you got to think about what is actually really important for you in a company. Unfortunately, we don't learn that until we've had until we've had the opposite, like a bad experience with a company, right? But I think that, you know, of course, we're in a time where the job market's kind of funky right now, at least for marketing folks. And so sometimes we're just like, we need the job. And I get that. But if we're in a space where we're maybe looking or we're considering, don't just let it be about the money. Don't let it just be about the title. Let it be about the culture. Let it be about the job. Let it be about the work that you actually enjoy doing and that you want to do more of, because that's ultimately how you're going to find fulfillment in your job. Many people find fulfillment outside of work, but if you're someone like me who really wants to find, you know, some level of fulfillment in work, I think that doing your research on the company, interviewing some people, reaching out to someone on LinkedIn, just, hey, I saw you're in this, I saw a job posting, just would love to connect with you, ask you a few questions. There's no harm in doing that. I think you said it earlier, the worst someone can say is no.
Yeah. So that's great advice. That's one of the questions, you know, if you ever talk to a company, find the way to phrase that. You know, a lot of companies, they'll let you speak to another employee, right? Or maybe not the hiring manager, but someone that they report to. One of the questions that is really good to ask is, you know, if they center on their values, is can you give me an example where the company's values, like they cater to you for those company values? And usually if you hit a lot of blank faces, it's a good indication. So I've always had the motto, I run towards something, not run away from something. So I think that ponies up with what you said, is like, hey, find the thing that you're going to love here. So last question for you today, Hannah. If you couldn't work in marketing anymore and you had to choose a different career, what do you think you would choose and why?
Okay. I would be a party planner of sorts.
Okay.
Yes. I am a new-ish mom. I have a 16th month old. And I'm in my party planning era. I am planning all the baby showers for all my friends. I am planning my daughter's birthday parties. We've got it going on. I'm teaching myself how to make balloon arches because that is a must now, apparently, for parties. So I think I would be doing some level of party planning. Really, because I love making people feel special. So anytime I can do that and get to be creative too, which is another thing that I love to do, I just feel like that's like the jackpot. Like, so in my free time, I am 1000% party planning. I'm actually planning a shower right now for a friend who's expecting a baby. So if I could get paid to do that too, that would be awesome.
What's the best type of party to plan? Like the most fun? Is it a birthday? Is it an anniversary? Is it baby showers? Is it like, what's the best type of party?
Yeah, I love a birthday party.
Okay.
A kid's birthday party, because their like awe and wonder at everything is just like, it's unmatched. And especially if you know the theme is something that they truly love or they've had a hand in picking it out. First birthday parties are fun, but like when it's more interactive with the kids, my niece is turning 4 in November, and we are planning an Elsa party. Me and my sister-in-law. I've inserted myself into the party planning experience, and I just cannot wait to see Jane's face, because she is going to be so excited when she sees all the balloons. We like showed her Pinterest and she was like, I want that. And so to know that she's like getting to have her hand in the planning experience and then we get to bring it to life is just really cool.
Awesome. And Jane, we've got 5 shout outs in this episode. You crushed it.
So
you almost double this up. I know. Hannah, pleasure having you. Thank you for your time. If someone wants to reach out, ask you a question about your career, ask you a question about Ugly Mug marketing, whatever it is, what's the best way for someone to get a hold of you?
Yeah. Find me on LinkedIn. You can just search for Hannah Balia. You can get connected with me there. Or if you want to check out the Ugly Mug marketing website, you can also get connected with me there. I get sent all of the messages that come through there. You can find us at uglymugmarketing.com.
Excellent. Hannah Balia, everyone, Director of Communications and Teaching at Ugly Mug Marketing. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Be sure to like, rate, review, share, do whatever you want to do with the podcast. If you want to explore other careers or share your career with us, visit the website, check out more. Until next time, be kind to one another. Go Bills. Unboxing careers.